What is up, guys? Welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast. Hope you guys are having a great Monday evening. In today's episode, what we will be discussing, how good can Ausar Thompson be? We'll be playing an audio clip from the Zach Lowe show. He touched on Ausar Thompson for around 2 minutes. We'll be playing an audio clip from his podcast and giving our overall thoughts and opinions on the conversation that he was having about Ausar. We'll also be playing a clip from Howard Beck. He had a take on Jaden Ivey. And I think it's something that I've seen a lot of people have, not only here locally in Detroit, but also nationally across the league, when people do discuss and talk about this Detroit Pistons backcourt. Pistons made a move. They did re-sign a two-way guy. We'll be kind of digging into that and what that means for him and his future with the Detroit Pistons. And we'll be ending the podcast with Dwayne Casey. Could he be leaving the Detroit Pistons front office for another one? So let's get into today's episode, you guys. We're going to start first with playing an audio clip from Zach Lowe discussing Ausar Thompson. So here's a clip.
I just think Ausar Thompson has a chance to be really, really good and really good sooner than people think. Offensively, he's obviously very raw. Although he's flashed some ball skills and the ability to bully smaller guys. But number one, the Jalen Duren, Ausar Thompson interior passing, cutting connection was like a real thing in the playoffs. You send two at Cade dumps it to Duren. Duren's a good passer. Ausar is a great cutter along the baseline. And Detroit sort of sets up the floor so he's on the same side with their best shooter, and that shooter is lifting up toward the top, and the whole side is clear for Ausar Thompson. And by the way, cutters, really good athletic cutters, have gravity in a similar way have shooters. If you go back and watch that Knicks series, you will catch Knicks assistant coaches pointing to where Ausar Thompson is on the baseline, being like, you are too far away from him. You got to help, because if he catches his ball, he's going up and he's going to finish in traffic. And that opens up stuff for the shooters behind him. He's an insane offensive rebounder. He got 9.5 free throws per 36 minutes in the playoffs. 9.5. He's just an absolute force of nature attacking the rim. And I think there's a lot of levers the Pistons can pull with him if they trust him to do it. Like, if he's going to be guarded by smaller guys, put him in ball screens with Cade, get switches. Same if he's going to be guarded by bigger guys. If his defender's going to ignore him, use him here and there, like the Warriors would use Draymond Green. Have him set a handoff for a guy, for Duncan Robinson coming off a screen, for a shooter, for Cade, for whoever. I just think he's an incredibly exciting player. The defense, he's just going to be a monster on defense across every position.
So Zach actually got into a lot of things with Ausar, and I'll kind of just give you guys my thoughts on that whole segment that he had about him. If you haven't checked out the podcast, definitely do. They did like a fun little game where they picked like intriguing players in the NBA, and they actually picked two Pistons in this game, which I was kind of, genuinely surprised. Maybe I shouldn't get, so surprised that more people are talking about the Detroit Pistons in a positive way. It's kind of weird because we've kind of just been on the, the wrong end of a joke for so many years during the rebuild, but kind of shifting back to Ausar. I think what Zach said is the correct thing. Like, Ausar Thompson is going to be better than a lot of people think. And when I mean better, I think he's going to take a leap this year, because this is his first official offseason where he can actually just put in 100% work. His rookie year didn't really get to put in as much work as he probably could have because he was getting drafted, right? Last season, he was dealing with blood clots. He was dealing with the thrombosis, so he couldn't, work out. The basketball activities were extremely limited, and we didn't get to see him till December. So, he kind of had to do everything on the fly, having no training camp, not getting to work on his game whatsoever. And I thought he did actually a pretty good job, last year, getting into shape on the fly. This summer is the first summer where, one, he gets to be in the gym, lift weights, no restrictions, gets to work with Fred Vincent and other basketball coaches and trainers working on his game this summer. And we've seen pictures, the Slam magazine cover photo There's a picture of him at a basketball camp. Like, you can tell he's actually put on some weight. He's put on some muscle, and he's taking this offseason very seriously. And I think we all know that. Like, he's a gym rat. He's going to be in the gym. He is going to be working on his game. But a lot of things that, Zach said that I was kind of intrigued with is the dribble handoff thing he was talking about. He kind of said, could you use a SAR in Draymond-esque situations where the SAR's bringing the ball up the court, he's setting up the offense, and he's handing it off to a player on the Detroit Pistons. I think Ausar's a gifted enough passer where if you want to kind of, experiment with that, you kind of want to do that. I think he's more than capable of executing and setting up DHOs. We see a lot of DHOs usually initiated by Jalen Duren, who's gotten much better at that over the past couple of seasons. He's actually gotten really good at it. Isaiah Stewart is known to set up some DHOs as well. I mean, if you have Ausar Thompson doing that and you have multiple players on your roster being able to one set a screen and then dump off a pass, I think that is extremely flexible and valuable for this Detroit Pistons team. And you're giving yourself a lot of different looks to throw off opposing defenses. So that's one thing that Zach said that I was really intrigued with. I think another thing that he touched on was the cutting with Ausar Thompson. Now, when you're not able to shoot the basketball, and we know Ausar Thompson, his offense is still a work in progress. His jump shot is still a work in progress. But him being the cutter that he is, I tend to agree there with Zach. Like, the backdoor cuts he was able to execute this year, even if it wasn't a backdoor cut, but, there was an opening and Cade had the basketball. Ausar was, smart enough to find a small lane to either, finish with a layup, a floater, or a dunk, because he just floats in the air when he decides he's going to dunk the basketball. So I think there's a lot there to like with Ausar. I can't say I'm really surprised that Zach Lowe had him as an intriguing player to look out for this upcoming season, because the thing I've seen listening to a lot of different NBA podcasts, they're really high on Ausar Thompson, and deservedly so. He's a very intriguing player. If he develops a jump shot, I think you're getting a player that is really, really valuable, because we all know the type of defender he is. He's the best perimeter defender on this basketball team right now. He's a very versatile defender. I think he can guard 1 through 5 if you ask him to. That's how good he is defensively. But did want to actually play another audio clip talking about Ausar. This was Howard Beck's kind of take on the Ausar Thompson conversation.
How about all-defensive team good, along with his brother? In April, when I was doing my usual make the rounds, talk to scouts and executives and others to try to just get some perspective on all the balloting, especially with the defensive awards, which I think are always the hardest, one made the point to me, or the assertion to me, I should say, that Ausar Thompson was not eligible based on the games played rule. Ausar is going to be better than Amen defensively. Not offensively. Amen is obviously miles ahead of him, but that Ausar will be the better defender. And it was kind of a wait and see what you see when we get a full season, when we see a full season out of him.
And I think we already know the type of defender Ausar is. Now, he did kind of get, I don't want to say snubbed, because these players voted on this new CBA in terms of being able to make, all NBA, all defensive teams. But, if Ausar does meet the criteria, he's easily going to be an all defensive team. His brother made it this past year. And people around the NBA, whether it's general managers or scouts, they're like, yeah, Ausar Thompson, 100% is the better defender out of the Thompson twins. Amen's a little bit ahead offensively, but Amen has not had the blood clots. And this will be his second full offseason being able to work on his game. I think Ausar is a little bit behind because of the blood clots, but it'll be interesting to see, long term, who is going to be the better Thompson twin. I mean, you look at their stats, they're like damn near identical. Men did play a little bit more minutes this season, but I feel very confident that Ausar Thompson can put it together as a two-way player. Might not be this year, but I kind of bank on him just getting better as a basketball player. Now, I did want to transition into Howard Beck on Jaden Ivey. Now, he said something that I think a lot of us here locally in Michigan and Detroit have had conversations about. Now, this is what he's hearing nationally about Jaden Ivey, Pistons backcourt, and the fit with Cade Cunningham.
There's a lot to like about the outline of Jaden Ivey, and has been since the moment they drafted him. But the reason I bring him up as a player of intrigue is because I think there are still some doubts across the league about his fit next to Cade, his fit in general, his kind of mindset when he's got the ball in his hands, and how much is he going to need the ball, and how much is he willing to play off the ball. And so, you know, they lose Dennis Schroeder, who I think was an important presence, not just as a three-point shooting, but his just kind of harassing, annoying, pestering defense. And somebody kind of needs to bring that in Schroeder's absence now. I don't know that's Jaden Ivey's reputation, but he certainly has the athleticism and the ability to do that. Can he be a reliable enough three-point shooter to be playing off the ball as much as he probably should be, needs to be shot? He was shooting 40% when he went down last year, but
45% on catch and shoot threes last year. That's not sustainable, but the trend line's pointing the way you want it to point if you're the Pistons.
So I feel like we've had a lot of conversations with this backcourt and where it could be either trending or whether they need to make a change. Now, I feel like myself, and I'm not including other Detroit Pistons podcasters or content creators, I feel like myself, I've been pretty fair with Jaden Ivey. Some of you guys just aren't high on him, and that's okay. You're, right to your opinions, and that's what making a podcast and a YouTube channel and uploading these videos is fun, because not everyone's going to agree with you 100%. But what Howard Beck said is, there's question around the league whether or not this backcourt can coexist and work together. And I think those questions are still there because he only played 30 games this year. But if you kind of add context to the situation, like Jaden Ivey was playing some of his best ball of his career under JB Bickerstaff. Kevin O'Connor touched on, or Zach Lowe touched on, shooting 45% on catching threes, which is a great number. He doesn't feel like it's sustainable. I tend to agree there, because that's a ridiculous clip that you're shooting at. He would probably come back to earth if he was fully healthy for the entirety of this past season. But he shot 40% from three on pretty good volume. Showed the ability to be able to play off ball. But he also showed the ability, if you needed him to run your second unit, he was doing it fine. So I think the biggest question with this backcourt right now is, can they stay healthy? Can this backcourt stay healthy? Because we still have a lot of questions that we need answers to. Can this backcourt work out long-term in Detroit? Can they stay healthy? Can they produce wins? I think that is the biggest thing as Pistons fans that we are still looking for. And then you also have the contract situation looming over your head, because he's extension eligible this summer. If you want to give him an extension, if you want to just go into this season and say, hey, we're not going to extend you this summer. We're going to just let you go out there and prove that you can be a long-term shooting guard for this organization. I think the Pistons would do that as well. I think there's a lot of questions that we still need answers to. But I do believe Jaden Ivey, once he does get extended, it's probably going to be over $100 million, 4 or 5 year deal. He's not getting the max like Cade got. I don't think the Pistons will do that, but I think it'll be around the $100 million range, whether it's around $25 million to $28 million per year. I'm not entirely sure. I'm really bad at kind of guesstimating what these contracts may or may not be. I mean, you guys probably remember, I thought Simone Fontecchio was getting $20 million. And the guy only got like, what, 8? And he's no longer on the Detroit Pistons. But I think Ivey will get extended. I did want to kind of just talk about it and discuss it on the podcast today. That's what, Howard Beck, who's a national reporter, here's in, NBA circles with general managers and scouts that, people are still kind of doubting whether or not this backcourt can work together long term. I'm just hoping we have a fully healthy offseason with not only Cade Cunningham, Jaden Ivey, but this entire Detroit Pistons roster. I'm really hoping we have a healthy season. I thought last season we did that, but we also signed guys that really don't miss games. But did want to touch on it for a couple of minutes. Now, the next topic will be kind of segueing over to the Detroit Pistons decided that they're going to re-sign Jenkins on a 2-way contract. Now, this happened yesterday from Keith Smith of SpotTrack.com. So, Jenkins will be with the Detroit Pistons on a 2-way contract, you guys. Now, I think that there's still a chance he could get converted to a standard contract. I think there is a chance that could happen. He's going to have a very good training camp and a very good preseason. But in the event he doesn't, maybe it's just, average to above average, he's probably going to be the Detroit Pistons 4th-string point guard. You have Cade. Jaden Ivey is going to get a bulk of those backup point guard minutes. And then Marcus Sasser, in my opinion, is higher in the rotation. As of right now, to me, anyways, as a backup point guard, which I really don't like seeing Marcus Sasser, play point guard. I'd rather see him play off ball and just let him focus on scoring. Don't make him be a point guard, but I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. But Jenkins probably is like your 4th-string point guard as of right now. What that means for him is he's going to be spending most of his time, if not all of his time, with the Motor City Cruise being their starting point guard. Maybe he gets a standard contract. Maybe he doesn't. But I know I was very impressed with him this summer league, especially the Houston game where he made Reed Shepherd not look like a lottery pick. Defensively, he was just up in his chest. I thought he just had such a impactful summer league where I was really impressed with him. But hey, he could have a really good training camp in some preseason games, and he could get converted to a standard contract. Pistons do still have 2 available roster spots open, and they have not been filled. They still have the opportunity to, upgrade that backup 4 position that we talk about a lot. And they also have the opportunity to maybe possibly explore some other positions that they feel they need to upgrade. But as of right now, Jenkins will be on a 2-way deal with the Detroit Pistons and will be starting in the G League with the Motor City Cruise. Now, we're going to end the podcast with Dwayne Casey. Now, could he be leaving? Now, this was a post from Sportsnet, which is based in Canada. And Dwayne Casey has thrown his hat in the ring for the vacant Raptors president of basketball operations job. So Dwayne Casey has decided that he is interested in applying to go work in the Toronto Raptors front office. Now, the one thing with Dwayne Casey that I will say is I always give him a pass because when he came here in Detroit, you guys, he came because of Blake Griffin, because he thought he was going to be coaching a playoff team. As soon as that season was over, the 41-41 season, Blake tore his meniscus. His knee was never the same. And the Pistons decided, time to rebuild. And Dwayne Casey didn't sign up for that and never complained, never whined, never bitched, just did his job. Now, there were times where I was frustrated. There were times where I didn't agree with some of his coaching decisions, but it was just a situation where he just didn't really sign up for it, and I can't really blame him. He did get kind of promoted to the front office where he was a scout, and then this past year they promoted him to senior advisor, working in the front office for the Detroit Pistons. That title was once held by Ed Stefanski. Dwayne Casey currently has that here in Detroit. Now, Toronto is a team that he's extremely familiar with. He's extremely familiar with the people over in that organization, and he's interviewed for the president of basketball ops position multiple times. I don't know, like a place that fired me as a head coach, I don't know if I'd want to really go back to work in their front office. Not saying that Dwayne Casey isn't qualified, but that's just me personally. I don't know about you guys. Like, I would never want to go back to a place that fired me and then I interview for the job all over again. And like, yeah, let's just run it back like the good old days, right? If he does decide to leave the Detroit Pistons front office to go work, is more of like a general manager type for the Raptors, I think he would be a good fit. I had the pleasure of meeting Dwayne Casey a few years ago, and he's a very smart basketball mind, still loves the game. And like, I remember when we had the first overall pick before we drafted Cade, and we talked about all top 5 prospects for a few minutes, and like, he knew all these guys inside and out, knew their strengths, their weaknesses. Like, I think Casey would be a good fit if Toronto does decide to go in that direction. I know with Ujiri deciding he just didn't want to do it anymore in Toronto, they obviously have to fill that position, but I'd hate to see him go. Don't really know what he does on a day-to-day basis in the Detroit Pistons, front office under Trajan Langdon and company. But if he does decide to go, thank you. Thank you for, being a trooper during the rebuild. Obviously didn't go the way that I think Pistons fans wanted it when we did hire him, especially after we decided to kind of tear down the studs and just decide we're just going to rip everything up and rebuild this thing. But I always have respect for Casey, just for the fact that, he never complained, never threw anyone in the bus. We never saw any tabloids of him being upset with the front office or the organization. He always spoke very highly of, the front office, Troy, Tom Gores, Arntelem, all those guys up there. And they took care of him. They promoted him and gave him a job. And, maybe he feels he's qualified enough to, run a basketball team, be a president of basketball operations, and get the Toronto Raptors, back on the map. They've kind of fallen off a cliff kind of during their retooling era. Obviously, they have some intriguing pieces. I did a podcast, I think, on Saturday when I saw their, Eastern Conference power ranking. I still don't know what the Raptors are going to do because there's a lot of talented pieces on that team. I just don't think they fit together. But Casey does decide he wants to, go run that team, try to get them back to winning basketball when, he was coaching there. More power to him. But want to wrap up today's episode of the podcast. Hope you guys did enjoy it. Let me know what you guys thought of the Zach Lowe segment talking about Ausar Thompson, as well as Howard Beck's comments about Jaden Ivey. Don Jenkins getting that 2-way contract with the Detroit Pistons, and Dwayne Casey possibly leaving the Detroit Pistons to go join the Toronto Raptors front office. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great night. And as always, go Pistons. Peace.